Good morning, students. So, in the previous session, we have discussed about the various digestive glands like salivary glands, gastric glands, and pancreas. Today, we are going to learn another important gland, digestive gland, liver. First of all, let us study its structure and later its function. And then we will learn about the intestinal glands also. Next. Liver is the largest gland present in our body. It is present below the diaphragm at the right side. It is present below the diaphragm. Under right side. Right side. It weighs nearly 1.2 to 1.5 kgs. It weighs nearly 1.2 to 1.5 kg. The liver consists of two lobes. The liver is made up of two lobes. Each lobe contains many hepatic lobules. Each lobe contains many hepatic lobules. And these hepatic lobules are often called as a structural and functional unit of the liver. Hepatic lobules are the structural and functional unit of the liver. So these are the structural and functional unit of the liver. Inside the hepatic lobule, we can find hepatocytes. So this is a hepatic lobule. Like this, there are many hexagonal lobules. Okay. So these are hepatocytes which are present in the lobule, hepatic lobule. And these hepatocytes are arranged in the form of cord, hepatic cord. Inside the hepatic lobule, we can find many hepatocytes which are arranged in the form of cord fashion. And these hepatocytes produce bile juice. These hepatocytes produce bile juice. These hepatocytes contain a duct called hepatic duct. The bile juice produced from the hepatocytes is carried to the gallbladder, where the bile juice get concentrated. So the bile juice which is produced from the hepatocytes is carried to the gallbladder by the hepatic duct. In the gallbladder, this bile juice get concentrated. From the gallbladder, a duct arises called as a cystic duct. This hepatic duct and cystic duct both unite and forms a common bile duct. Common bile duct. So this common bile duct. From the pancreas, a duct arises. That is called as a pancreatic duct. This common bile duct and the pancreatic duct unite to form hepatopancreatic duct. Unite to form hepatopancreatic duct. And this hepatopancreatic duct opens into the duodenum part of the small intestine. We have already learnt this particular concept in the last session also. Once again, I am recalling the structure of liver. Liver is the largest gland present in our body. It is present below the diaphragm under the right side. It weighs nearly about 1.2 to 1.5 kg. And liver consists of two lobes. Each lobe contains many hepatic lobules. Inside the hepatic lobule, there are many hepatocytes which are arranged in the form of cord, hepatic cord. And these hepatocytes produce the bile juice and they convey this bile juice with the help of hepatic duct to the gallbladder, where the bile juice get concentrated. From the gallbladder, a duct arises that is called as a cystic duct. So this hepatic duct together with the cystic duct forms a common bile duct. From the pancreas, a duct arises that is called as a pancreatic duct. Both unite to form hepatopancreatic duct, which is also called as ampulla of Vater. Ampulla of Vater. And this duct actually opens into the duodenum part of the small intestine. And the opening of this duct is guarded by a sphincter called sphincter of Oddi. Sphincter of Oddi. So the opening of the hepatopancreatic duct is guarded by a sphincter of Oddi. So that is regarding the structure of the liver. Next, we are discussing about the functions of the liver. Functions of liver. Okay. Now let us learn about the functions of the liver. Liver performs a variety of functions like synthesis, storage, and secretion. Liver produces bile juice, and this bile juice contains bile salts and bile pigments. Bile salts and bile pigments. Liver produces bile juice. The bile juice contains bile salts and bile pigments. The bile salts include tarcholates and glycolates of sodium and potassium. Bile pigments includes bilirubin, biliverdin. These pigments are formed due to the destruction of the old RBC. The bile pigments are formed due to the destruction of the old worn out RBC. Okay. Next. Liver is involved in carbohydrate metabolism. It is involved in carbohydrate metabolism like glycogenesis, gluconeogenesis, lipogenesis. It is involved in carbohydrate mechanism, synthesis of glucose, breakdown of glucose. So it is involved in carbohydrate mechanism. Next, it is also involved in lipid metabolism. Liver is involved in lipid metabolism, synthesis of cholesterol and triglycerides. Synthesis of cholesterol and triglycerides. Liver is the chief organ of detoxification. The toxic substances which has entered into our body through the food are actually detoxified in the liver. That is the reason why the first organ that is going to be affected in the chronic alcoholic patient is liver. Liver acts as a thermoregulatory organ. like the skeletal muscle. Liver acts as a thermoregulatory organ like the skeletal muscle. Next, liver is having phagocytic cells called Kupffer cells. Liver is having a phagocytic cells called Kupffer cells, and these cells will destroy the harmful substances or bacteria that has entered into the body or that has reached to the liver, in other words. Next, liver acts as a hemopoietic organ in the fetus and erythroclastic organ in the adults. It acts as a hemopoietic organ in fetus, and it acts as a erythroclastic organ in adults. What is a hemopoietic organ? So, the organ which is actually involved in the production of the blood cells. So, in the fetal stage, liver helps in the production of the blood. The same liver will act as a erythroclastic and destruction of the old RBC that takes place in the liver in case of adults. So, the RBC are produced during the fetal stage, and the same liver is involved in the destruction of RBC. So these are the functions of the various functions of the liver. So let me recall once again. Liver is produce the bile juice. The bile juice contain bile salts and bile pigments. The bile salts include tharcolate and glycolates of sodium and potassium. The bile pigments includes bilirubin, biliverdin, which are formed due to the destruction of the old and worn out RBC. Liver is involved in the carbohydrate metabolism, gluconeogenesis, glycogenesis, and lipogenesis. Liver is also involved in lipid metabolism, synthesis of cholesterol and triglycerides. Liver is also involved in the detoxification. It is a chief organ of detoxification. That means it converts a toxic substance into less toxic substances. It acts as a thermoregulatory organ just like the skeletal muscle and helps in the production or maintenance of the body temperature. The Kupffer cells are the phagocytic cells present in the liver, and they destroy the unwanted substances by performing the phagocytosis. And liver acts as a hemopoietic organ in fetus. That means it helps in the production of the RBC, and the same organ will helps in destruction also in case of adults. And liver also is involved in producing the plasma proteins like albumin and globulins. So liver is involved in producing the plasma proteins like albumins, globulins. It also helps in the production of blood clotting factors like fibrinogen and prothrombin. Fibrinogen, prothrombin. These two substances are useful in the blood clotting mechanism. And liver also produces heparin, which is an anticoagulant. In general, the blood does not get clotted in the blood vessels because of an anticoagulant called heparin, which is actually produced from the liver. So that is about the functions of the liver. Let us learn about the intestinal glands. It includes Bronus glands and crypts of Leberkohn. The Bronus glands are located in the mucosa of the duodenum part, and they produce the mucus. Okay. The secretions of both the Bronus gland along with the crypts of Leberkohn constitute the intestinal juice, also called as succus entericus, also called as succus entericus. The wall of the intestine possesses two types of glands, Brunner's gland and crypts of Leberkohen. The Brunner glands are located at the mucosa of the small intestine, duodenum part of the small intestine, and they produce the mucus. The secretions of the Brunner's gland along with the crypts of Leberkohen constitute the intestinal juice, also called as a succus entericus. So this is regarding the intestinal gland. Now we are going to learn about the histology of alimentary canal. Starting from the esophagus to the rectum, the wall of the alimentary canal possesses the following layers: serosa, muscularis externa, muscularis layer, submucosa, and mucosa. The wall of the intestine possesses outer serosa layer, next followed by the muscularis layer, and followed by the submucosa and the mucosa. Mucosa, serosa is the outermost layer. It is made up of thin mesothelium. Serosa is the outermost layer made up of thin mesothelium. Below the serosa, the layer found is muscularis. It consists of outer longitudinal muscles, and inner circular muscles, After this, the layer that comes is submucosa. So this is the submucosa. So below the submucosa, the innermost layer is outermost layer is serosa, then was muscularis, submucosa and mucosa. So this is submucosa, and the innermost layer is mucosa. So the wall of the alimentary canal, starting from the esophagus to the rectum, possesses 4 layers, namely the outer serosa, followed by the muscularis layer, then submucosa and the mucosa. So this is the serosa layer, and this serosa is made up of thin mesothelium, which has also connective tissue. Below the serosa, the layer we found is muscularis. It consists of outer longitudinal muscles and inner circular muscles. Below the muscularis layer, we can find submucosa, and this submucosa consists of connective tissue, blood vessels, nerves, and lymphatic vessels. The submucosa consists of connective tissue, nerves, blood vessels, and lymph capillaries or lymph vessels. So mucosa is the innermost layer of the alimentary canal, and this mucosa of the stomach shows irregular folds. The mucosa of the stomach shows irregular folds, and these irregular folds are called as a gastric rugae. They are called as a gastric rugae. And the small intestine part of the mucosa shows a finger-like projections, which are called as a villi. Let us see the structure of the villi. So these are nothing but just a finger-like projections, and they are lined by a columnar epithelium. They are lined by columnar epithelium. So these columnar epithelial cells are provided with small hair-like structures which are called as a villi, microvilli, which are called as a microvilli. The mucosa shows a finger-like projections called villi. The villi is lined by columnar epithelium, and these columnar epithelial cells are provided with small hair-like structures which are described as microvilli. They increase the surface area of absorption. Inside the villi, we can find blood vessels and lymph capillaries. So the lymph capillaries that are found in the villi are called as lecitals. The lymph capillaries that are found in the villi are called as lecitals. In stomach, when you observe the muscularis layer, in addition to the outer longitudinal and inner circular muscles, we can find the presence of another additional layer of muscles called as oblique muscles. So, oblique muscles are present in the stomach part. Okay. So, the wall of the intestine starting from the esophagus to the rectum consists of 4 layers, namely outer serosa, followed by muscularis, and then submucosa and the mucosa. Serosa is the outermost layer made up of thin mesothelium. Below the serosa, muscularis externa is present. It consists of outer longitudinal muscles and inner circular muscles. Below the circular muscles, submucosal layer is present. It consists of connective tissue, blood vessels, nerves, and lymph capillaries. Next, the submucosa of the duodenum process Brunner's glands, and they secrete the mucus. And the mucosa shows a finger-like projections called villi in the small intestine. And the mucosa of the stomach shows irregular folds called as a gastric rugae. So these villi has a small hair-like structures called as a microvilli. So these arrangement will increase the surface area of absorption. Inside the villi, we can find the lymph capillaries and the blood vessels. The lymph capillaries that are present in the villi are called as lecitals. So that is regarding the histology of the alimentary canal. At the base of the villi, we can find crypts of Leber-Cohen. This is called as crypts of Leber-Cohen, which are involved in production of the intestinal enzymes, which we will learn in the next class. Let us discuss about the intestinal enzymes that are produced from the crypts of the Leber-Cohen. The intestinal enzymes include amylase, intestinal amylase, and lipase, peptidases like tripeptidase, and dipeptidase, and aminopeptidase is an enzyme related to the digestion of the proteins. And next, amylase acts on the starch or carbohydrates. Lipase acts on the lipids. Peptidase, tripeptidase acts on dipeptides and tripeptides. Aminopeptidase acts on proteins. And it also contains the pancreatic lipase is also called as a steaopsin. And nucleotidase and nucleosidase. So these are the list of enzymes produced by the crypts of Leber-Cohen. So the secretions of both these Bronner's gland as well as Crepus lubricans constitute the intestinal juice. Okay. So this amylase acts on starch. It is a starch splitting engine. That means it acts on the carbohydrate, polysaccharide. Okay. Lipase acts on lipids. Peptidase includes tripeptidase, dipeptidase. Okay. Nucleotidase and nucleosidase acts on nucleotides and nucleosides. Okay. So in this video, we have discussed about the liver and its structure and its function, and the structure of the alimentary canal, and the list of enzymes that are produced by the intestinal glands. So in the next session, we are going to learn about the process of the digestion.